Alrighty. Hello, everybody. My name is William Pohemus, and today I'm joined here with Paul Johansson and Rio Phillips. Rio is a candidate running to represent West Virginia in the United States Senate. We will be asking him a series of important questions about his campaign and his plans for addressing issues West Virginians face. This interview is not an advertisement or an endorsement. It is simply an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidate. So let's start with an introduction. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Rio, and share your core policies and goals?
Absolutely. Thank you both for everything, all this effort and the energy. It's just deeply, deeply appreciated. Yeah. So, everybody, nice to meet you. My name is Rio Phillips. I'm a progressive working class Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate here in West Virginia. I am down in Charleston, Kanawha City. Um, been working primarily hospitality. I'm looking to shift into campaigning only, but I have been working a full time job. So when I say progressive working class, I mean it. We are probably the poorest campaign for public office, especially U.S. Senate in maybe American history. I'm not really sure. We're definitely down there, but I have had an amazing experience on this trail so far. We started out in May, and it's been almost 9 months now. Oh my lord! And I've just met hundreds, if not thousands, of people already. Um, Life changing memories. Besides, the core issues of the campaign and the platform, which we'll get into in a second, the core memories, the friends that I'm making, I really just couldn't even put it into words. It feels like one long magical movie like experience almost. And because this stuff never happens. Most senators are wealthy and living in gated communities and have security and protection. I don't have any of that. And so it's a very unique experience to say the least. But in terms of platform, um, Medicare for all, clean water for all, safe roads for all, in the Cash for Kids scam, legal cannabis across the state, um, free public university and trade school, expand PEIA, and a handful of other things. But we'll get into all of this.
Awesome. Paul,
Yeah.
do you have any
All right.
follow-up questions for that one?
No, that sounds a great intro. It gives a opening to start and leaves a lot of room. So thank you. And I mentioned before we started recording, I have known other candidates for office in the last 6 years, actually 8 years, started getting involved after 2016 when Trump came into office, and I saw the level of concern in a lot of people that I knew over his policies, his agenda, and his behavior online. So mainly I've been involved with Democratic candidates. Here's Wendell about 6 years ago, and Stephen Wendelin and Zach Shrewsbury, as well as local candidates in the last few years. So let that be known. Yes, no other deeper questions right now. And the next question was, where did you grow up? And if not from this area, how did you come to know West Virginia?
Yeah, that's an important one. Born in Virginia, so Appalachian born and raised. How did I wind up here? Well, I traveled the country in my 30s and lived all over the place. Uh, so it's kind of a full circle moment for me. I became an activist back in 2000. I worked with Ralph Nader on his presidential campaign. Um, so I was already going into my 20s, very, very suspicious of the main, two-party system and like the duality of that, and I just didn't really resonate with it even in my early 20s. And traveled through the country, um, lived all over the place from New York to LA to DC, um, just learning, traveling, taking in experiences, joining movements in all these places, traveling for the movement sometimes. Um, And I settled here during COVID, and the experience of that. Obviously, everybody has their own COVID experience. Mine was that I was launching a media and marketing agency, and I had already launched it. I mean, it was launched, and all my customers were small businesses. And as they lost their marketing budgets, I lost my bread and butter, and it was a free fall, pretty much a free fall. And if it wasn't for West Virginia, I would have completely bottomed out. That is a fact. And West Virginia's costs were low enough to allow me to breathe in a very tight moment. And I was able to survive. I was able to bounce back. I was able to rebuild myself. And I will never forget that. That really is an unforgettable thing that I'm very grateful for. The opportunities here, we need more opportunities. Don't get me wrong, everyone. But um, on a very base level, Charleston and West Virginia kind of saved my life because I was terrified, as a lot of people were. And but yeah, so I've been here 5 years. I've traveled a little bit in between, but based here in the same apartment, Canal City, since 2020, with some travel in there. But so 5 years in, and to me, and this is being perfectly transparent, the amount of work that I did in West Virginia prior to the campaign is minimum, because I was not as politically activated locally as I should have been. And I was doing work online. Just last year, actually, it shouldn't be 2025, 2024, when October 7th happened. Obviously, we were just absolutely torn apart over the endless violence. And, the kind of activism I was doing was like raising money for water and sending water trucks into Gaza during the conflict. So while not being West Virginia focused in the work, in terms of assisting the most disenfranchised and the weakest among us, that's exactly what we were focused on. So um, it's almost even hard to call Gaza working class. Like, it's even worse off than that. But that's where our heart was. And then after Elon did his little, salute back last January, I absolutely committed on the ground to West Virginia. I just said, no, what, you know what? I'm not going to allow fascism to creep into this state. I love this place, and it had already obviously creeped in, but um, we're going to push it out. We're going to push it out. And so we started rallying, and back in February, early February last year, I gathered with hundreds of people at the Capitol, almost spontaneously, and there were hundreds of senior citizens there, lots of youth, and everybody was just out against fascism. And it has been one hell of a journey since that day.
Well, that's thank you. I've got a follow-up question, because you put two things out. One was understand the dysfunction of the two parties, which I know has a lot of general agreement, but you chose to run as a Democrat
Yes.
in West Virginia, which is obviously generally considered a disadvantage in terms of just reading the R and D on the name.
Yep.
Uh, why did you choose to run as a Democrat, given that you see dysfunction in both parties?
Well, I've never been a Republican, so that was off the plate. For the
Okay.
record. Yeah, no, I was fighting George Bush and the Iraq War in 2003. So we were organizing, anti-war resistance 23 years ago. So basically, in my blood, I can't be a Republican, but was independent. So just historically speaking, I helped Obama get elected 2008. I was a Democrat at that point. And wasn't until 2011 with Occupy Wall Street, because I helped launch Occupy Wall Street. And that was really independent. That was not democratic because Obama was bailing out Wall Street, and we weren't okay with that. So we launched Occupy Wall Street. And then really independent from there until because I worked on Bernie's 2016 campaign, I worked on Bernie's 2020 campaign, independent throughout all of that, and then independent up until Elon's little salute, and that pushed me back to the party, and I just said I need to be working with the strongest opposition to whatever the hell that was, and so here I am.
Okay, I think I heard the answer is because that's the strongest opposition to uh, a short version Elon salute. So, or
Yes,
fascism. Got it.
while it
Okay.
has its problems, yes, you're absolutely right.
All right. Thank you.
So I guess leading into this question, it's good that you talked about these things. Can you tell us a little more, like what influenced you to get into politics,
The
or
blatant
to?
corruption. I mean, if the GOP's corruption, because like basically I was political in 2000 with the Nader campaign and the Green Party, but watching the stolen election of that year, because I lived in Florida at the time. My mother moved us to Florida after my parents got a divorce and we moved out of Virginia. So I was in Florida when they stole the election, and Florida was the linchpin of that stolen election. They wanted to do the recount in Florida. Florida blocked the recount, and it just so happened that George Bush's brother was governor of the state. And we were like, well, that looks awfully suspicious. So that was deeply jarring. I mean, I was 19 watching the stolen election of 2000. So, um, 1 year later, we were attacked. And then 2 years later, we were in Iraq. So it was just like one thing after another. The rabbit hole of history just sucked me down, and I haven't come out since.
Okay. Let me see. I'll take a follow up since we've got time for some depth here. Um, uh, three stories of stolen election. Yours, you already clarified the one on 2000 and your proximity to Florida, and what happened there in terms of SCOTUS and making a decision. What has he said? The presidential selection of George W. Bush. The
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
next is, would you comment on these two? You may not know the second one, and the first is obviously the Stop the Steal January 6, 2020 stolen election, which is the story that the Trump supporters, and I say pretty much just Trump supporters, I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing it in other areas, but mainly coming out of that campaign. And then if you, and I can remind you of it, there's a movement of statisticians about the 2024 election possibly being rigged or stolen. I don't know if you know any about it. There's a group called This Will Hold. So if you could comment on either of those.
Absolutely. You know, Data is everything. I'm actually cybersecurity certified with Google, as just part of push to expand my career possibilities and my knowledge base. I got trained with Google in cybersecurity. So data for me is everything. If the data had come out, verified, legitimate, independent data, also in court with the Stop the Steal whole shebang, I would be inclined to look at the data. Why? Because the history there's an American history. There is a precedent of American history with rigged elections and the possibility of tampering. Right? 2020 is not the first time we dealt with that, and so it's not new. That's not new. So do I believe that parties would rig elections? Absolutely, 100%. Um, do I trust the machinery to be completely genuine? Absolutely not. Um, so that being said, the same answer for 2024 and the possibility of rigging there. Absolutely, of course. Now, I don't think that the data really came out to enforce the 2020 steal, because there was court case after court case after court case, and we still don't really see the data and the evidence in any sort of volume. Um, the stuff that coming out for 2024 seems to be more associated with the computers and Elon's ability to access the computers, and to maybe it seems like have a back door with the technology. So again, that's just speculation. That's not data. However, I would put more I would put more credit to that because Elon is obviously one of the most advanced tech people on the earth. I would put more credit to that than I would to Stop the Steal of 2020. Just personally, just on, and that's my bias again, owning that. But until I see data on 2020 that is definitive, or court cases or rulings that are definitive, especially at the Supreme Court, you would think the conservative Supreme Court would have ruled in favor of a stolen election at this point. Nope, didn't even do that. Couldn't even get that much judicial authority on it. So doesn't look real, but again, it's all about the data.
Will, you want the next one or you want me to?
You can go ahead.
All right. So here's a tough question, Rio. It's intended to be. Is If there's anything in your history which, if revealed, could harm your campaign, would you share about that?
Absolutely. So glad you guys asked this because obviously there's a lot of mudslinging out there. And I want to get ahead of it. And I get ahead of it using this thing that we call radical transparency. It's just a concept I'm developing because had I not been using radical transparency this whole time, I wouldn't have a movement. And so when we came under heavy fire back when Zach Shrewsbury launched in July, um, there was a lot of negativity, a lot of dishonesty, a lot of spin, a lot of mudslinging. And so it took very deliberate communication, radical transparency with each individual around me to ensure that I didn't lose my movement. So I'm happy to address this stuff. The three big claims that people make against me are scammer, carpetbagger, and domestic abuser, which is it's painful to hear. It hurts my soul to hear. And we'll dive in on the three because they're all three of them are dishonest. But um, there's a reason that they say it, and there's a reason. So everybody lock in for this story. Here we go. I referenced Occupy Wall Street before. Now I've been doing activism for a very, very long time. It's been 14 years since we launched Occupy Wall Street, and everybody needs to understand that when you launch movements like that, like Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, Standing Rock, you earn yourself a small posse of stalkers, people whose job it is to tail you online, make your life more annoying, make your life more difficult, collect information about you, and then turn it upside down, make it negative, and put it out to people around you to try and tear you down, make sure you don't get anywhere or do anything. Well, I've been dealing with that. I'm going to testify right here to you. I've been dealing with that kind of stalking for 14 years. It has
Goodness.
never stopped. Yes, it's a nightmare. And I honestly cannot even begin to tell you how many horrible things have happened here. But over the years, because it's a long time, and there's been threats on my family. There's been threats on Muslims that I've worked with. Countless calls, countless new numbers, multiple different accounts that we suspect are like one or two people playing like five or six different roles. A number of issues. For 14 years, I've been dealing with this, and they have the exact same anonymous profiles on Facebook now that they had 14 years ago. Same profile pictures, same everything. It's deeply alienating. So this was 14 years ago that happened. They came into my life. So progressions of activity, right? So um, for instance, in 2013, I went on Fox News to stand up for these Muslims I was working with. And that's where a lot of the Muslim hatred came from. They lost their mind when they saw that I was helping Muslims organize a freedom of speech rally to declare that they had been racially profiled every day since 9/11, and I organized that with them on 9/11. And Fox News lost their mind. They were like, "You don't have a right to organize Muslims on 9/11." I'm like, "Actually, you're wrong. This is America, and they are Americans. They have a right. It doesn't matter. 9/11 is not off the table." And so that was obviously a firestorm, absolute firestorm. Dealt with hatred and death threats that you cannot possibly fathom. I mean, I was threatened hundreds and hundreds of times at that time in my history. And these stalkers were a part of that. Now, eventually, have never stopped. At some point, and I'm going to own up to this one because I'm ashamed of how I allowed myself to get to this point. But the reason I got to this point was because I was being stalked. So there is an audio of me out there where I threaten to kill my stalker because I had gone to the FBI, and I know this is shocking. I know this is jarring, and I'm just being as transparent as I can be because it's all deeply concerning, including the stalking and my response. Like all of it's concerning. So I had gone to the FBI countless times, and I mean many, many times. I had had witnesses to their stalking file reports alongside me, and no response ever from the FBI, not in years. After being tortured by them, and I mean, we're talking about like new numbers, new phone, like new messages, constant voice messages, new numbers. I called one of the numbers back and left this message. And now Zach Shrewsbury's supporters have it. And so the proof that they have it, that, like basically I go, well, you're obviously working with my stalkers because how else would you have that audio? So this is an incredibly crazy detail, right? I mean, this is very crazy. This is very like, wow, like this didn't expect this one to come into the campaign, right? Like, of course not. And so the opposition is obviously spreading this audio of me threatening this individual, making it seem like I'm crazy without any context. They don't include any context to it whatsoever. So they're just like, listen, he's crazy. Listen, he's threatening somebody's life. I was trying to get a stalker to stop abusing me. I was trying to get a stalker to stop abusing me. And I hit one of the darkest thought patterns I'd had in my whole life, easily. And the audio I'm not proud of. I'm not proud of it. It does make me look like if you didn't have context on that, you would think I was crazy. Sure, sure, sure. But this is a political campaign, and people are going to give data without the complete story. And that's how it works. And they are using that to make it seem like I am just some crazy person, and they don't want anybody to know the context of why it happened. So that's one, and that's a pretty big one. Would you guys agree?
Yes. And thank you for being transparent about it.
Yeah, thanks for being transparent and
And I'm not proud of
totally,
that
totally good.
behavior. I'm not proud of that behavior. You know, they pushed me. They got to me. They really got to me. Like it's disturbing when I hear it because I know how deeply disturbed I have been by it. So
Got it.
that there's that. Let's dig in. So scammer, carpetbagger, and domestic abuser. Now the same people spreading that audio are the same people saying domestic abuser, scammer, and carpetbagger. Same people. Now the scammer claim comes from those same stalkers going back to Occupy. They claimed that everything we did at Occupy was a scam. It didn't matter what you did. Didn't matter what you did. What we did at Occupy was raise money for food and for tents and resources. And it just came in naturally. It was like a natural component of being in the movement. You were online, people wanted to donate. Everybody was always asking, how do we help? How do we help? You had everybody online that couldn't go to the occupation. How do we help? How do we help? So they would send money all the time. So what we would do is we would buy tents and food with the money to put people in tents at Occupy Wall Street or one of the various occupations. And so everything we did was a scam. So the claim of scam comes from 14 years ago with the stalkers feeding Zach's opposition with the narrative. Or, I mean, sorry, my opposition, Zach's team, with the narrative of scamming, even though there is not 1 ounce of evidence anywhere that I have scammed anybody, and especially not in West Virginia. There is not one West Virginian that can claim that I have scammed them. And I say that confidently, very confidently. And then we get to carpetbagger. What the hell is a carpetbagger? Comes after the Civil War, people coming from the north, moving to the south to take advantage of people. That's a carpetbagger. That's Patrick Morrissey. That is not me. I do not have corporate money behind me. I do not have foreign lobbying money behind me. I'm not even from the North. Yeah, I lived in New York, but I was born in the Appalachian Mountains. So, so not a carpetbagger. Yeah, you'd have to have real money and be making real money to be a carpetbagger. Trust me, I ain't making real money. All right. So then domestic abuser, the heavy one, the big one that really like kind of gets people. Those same stalkers, again, we go back to the same stalkers from Occupy Wall Street, took a document. I'm going to tell the whole story right here. Took a document from an exchange that I had with a girlfriend out in California about 10 years ago. The only time in my life a restraining order was filed against me. They took the filing that was not a court order, meaning her application, they took that and spread that around and told everybody I was a domestic abuser. They took that and spread that around and said, I have restraining orders against me. So I had to call the courthouse and get all the paperwork because I was like, that is not how that went down. I had the restraining order. My restraining
Oh,
order was approved. Hers was declined. We have that receipt. We have that proof. And so of course, that's how I kept my movement because they were trying to break my movement up by telling everybody I was a domestic abuser. So I just went to everybody. I said, "Hey, here's the receipts. The judge ruled against my girlfriend, and that was that." But they
Got it.
still say it. They still say it, even
Uh,
though we have the receipts to prove that they're not telling the truth.
Got it. I wanna offer something which I know Will we can do. What when we release the interview, Um, you've given yourself a really great opportunity. If you follow up with it, I believe that anyone that has been attacked in a public forum has the right to respond in a public forum. You have your web page, etc. Will there would be no issue because this is an open document that you've created for him to go over the interview, um, take whatever points, questions, and go ahead and post. It might be a great way to link what you're doing. So it's just a thought in the moment, but it's certainly available to you. You've given pretty substantial documentation in your own defense, and it would give you a place and way to post that that would push back on.
Can I add to
Yeah,
this?
sure.
They're building on this so-called abuse narrative by now claiming that I'm abusing former volunteers or women that have been in my campaign. They're also claiming that. And to address that specifically, I have not abused any person in my campaign. They say that I scream at them, but they don't provide the audio because they know that I'm not screaming. Um, I don't scream at people in this state or anywhere, and haven't screamed at anybody on my campaign. I have been assertive in defense of my own honor when people lie about me, and they will take that and then spin that and make themselves the victim of that, right? Because
Right.
they're doubling down on their dishonesty, so that now it's been a really, shall we say,
Psychically disturbing.
psychically. That's fair. It's
Yeah, so that's why I'm offering it as an opportunity to go. The only thing I would always advise anyone, never try to prove a negative. It never goes anywhere. But what you have is direct response. You can provide data, and it would be a rare thing. And I know the risk of digging anything into a hole just draws more attention, which is not the purpose of the campaign. So I was going to suggest you've got an opportunity, and wanted to hand it back to Will to keep on the question so we don't run out of our second 40 minutes.
awesome. 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 Well, the next question will be, who are the people you do not want voting for you?
I don't have anybody in that category.
You know,
I,
Okay.
I am very intentional about not attacking West Virginia MAGA. I don't believe the fight is with them. The fight is not with them. The fight is with the billionaires and the corporations that are using particular individuals, Shelley Moore Capito, to completely screw over this state. We're 47th in education, 47th in economy, 50th in infrastructure, and she's been in there for 25 years. That's unacceptable. She's a career politician that hasn't done her job well. We got schools closing, poisoned water all over the place. The fight isn't with West Virginia MAGA. I'm open to everyone's vote. I want to work with independents, Republicans, Democrats, leftists. I don't care. If you want to save the Constitution and rebuild West Virginia, let's go.
Right.
Wonderful.
I'll expand on the question briefly as a model, even though I know we're going to run out of time again. Um, I think a lot of people were impressed by what Zoran did in New York City with his links with other people who were establishment candidates. I'm thinking particularly the comptroller of New York City. Um, are there links that you are creating with people that you believe will boost your campaign in terms of proving how well you work with people? He went to police, he went to all sorts of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate that the Democratic Party of the state has not been very welcoming to us. We are an upstart working class campaign, and we've received not the slightest bit of positivity from any any delegate or state senator. There's been no support, no outreach, nothing. No appreciation for us holding the space down, helping build up the Democratic Party. It's been really rough. It's been pretty rough. And honestly, they're behind. I'm convinced they're behind Zach Shrewsbury just from the fact that my team will write emails to Mike Pushkin and we don't get a response. I write emails to him, he won't respond. Um, very, very frustrating, but yet also expected.
Okay.
And, do you mind
Got it.
repeating your question? I feel like I don't want to
Um,
wander.
this is about in terms of the bridge building, you're going to have to work with
Bridge
everyone.
building, right? So thank
Some
you,
of them
thank
are
you,
other candidates. So
thank you.
what Zoran did
That's
is he worked
exactly
with
where I
another
wanted to go.
candidate
You're
against
exactly.
Cuomo, which is the establishment.
Yep.
So there,
That's
the
what I
other
wanted to
candidate,
go. It
and
was
let me hold on, paint the picture. The quote other candidate in this stand that is establishment would be Capito. So the
correct.
time spent combating Shrewsbury or any other candidate on the Democratic side, in a sense, doesn't move the ball on the big picture. So that there's so how are you going to build bridges within the Democratic Party to have a
Right.
coalition? Yeah.
Right. So it is more candidate based. Like we have a bunch of candidates because the candidates are more, they're less machinery and they're more the future of the machine. Right. So we got a bunch of candidates who can see what the future of the party should be. And then we have a bunch of people inside the party who want the party to stay the way that it is.
Got it.
And that's really what we're looking at. And we are building that coalition of candidates, and also national candidates. I'm working with the Citizens Impeachment, or what they call the Courage Candidate Coalition. I am linked up with progressive Democratic candidates and also independent candidates from around the country now, 100 of them. And we are all linked up very intricately, cross endorsing, cross promoting. So it's like a national network of candidates that I'm linked into here with this coalition. Um, we are all pledged to impeach, and since I am
Got it.
running for the U.S. Senate, I am pledged to convict, and that has been one of the core elements of my network building outside of the state, just like a larger national movement style building. And
And
that's just one
and
component of that. Yeah.
and within the state, and I just wanted a brief answer, if you would. And within the state, any where would you say that's working, happening?
Directly in the campaign. Because I literally
Okay.
speak with people like myself constantly all across the state. So I'm building a coalition of progressives, independents, and leftists and Democrats right now that I don't know if this state has seen anything like what we're building, maybe ever.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, I
Sounds
don't
good.
know if
All
it's
right.
ever been here. I don't think the state has ever seen anything as far left as what we're trying to
No.
build.
Hard to say. My guess you'd have to go back into Colbert history and the
Oh,
early
a hundred
mindstorming.
years.
But yeah, yeah,
A
right.
hundred years. Because
And Will may
what
know
kicked
more
off.
than I do about this. I'm a somewhat of a transplant also. So and I don't want to. Like I said, I think we're going to run into that 40-minute wall. So I'm looking at Will. because I've got the visual.
Oh
Yep.
no,
Oh,
it's
go
not.
for it.
We're
Oh,
still
good,
good.
good.
We're still
Okay,
good.
good, good.
I'll let you
Um,
know
let
when.
let's all right. Let's keep going though, because you've got like five more questions on there.
Yeah, so I guess we'll go with as we know, a lot of West Virginians face issues like addiction and high healthcare costs and electricity costs. We're curious which you're willing to do differently to ensure your plans actually turn into results.
The utility bill thing being higher here than anybody else, given the fact that we have the coal plants, is pretty messed up. That absolutely needs addressing. In terms of concrete plans, I would say that specific plan is under formulation. I don't have the most definitive plan on that. I'm being transparent. I've got a lot of other plans regarding water cleanups, cannabis legalization, homeless empowerment, a number of things. I've even got a plan to keep graduates in state by reducing their home cost price and assisting them in their career search. So there's plans. That one, let me think for a second. So what we need to do is to address the utility companies and address the overall exploitation of West Virginians and ensure that they're like the whole highest utility rate status needs to change. Like, obviously, we don't want to hold that title. We don't want to be the best at the worst things. So it seems like accountability for the utility companies, AEP or whoever else, is the focus, and there is a level of exploitation that's taking place. Now, in some places, I'm sure it's linked to the data center development, other places, not so much. But we definitively need to challenge any corporate interest, whether it's AEP or data center development, that increases these things. And I absolutely am focused on it. Um, and I'm not so sure if it's as much of a plan as a consistent platform position that we will not tolerate the exploitation of West Virginian utility bills, whether it's data center development or AEP or anything else. The status of the highest utility rates in the country is not an award that we want to win, period.
Gotcha. I'm going to offer you something because I have a link on our page. There's a gentleman named Nelson Jacobson who gave us a question. And this is not a question. This is to offer you something to research because it sounds like this isn't something you probably would have covered. There is a grant that's already going through for WVA Hydro Sense Hub. This is about using old coal mines as hydrogen capture. I do not know about the technology. I cannot go into it within an informed way. But if you follow up, it might be worth doing that as a deeper question, possibly on your page or somewhere else, or consulting with Nelson and others, and see if you do come up with anything that's of value. So I just
You
want
know,
to offer that.
the abandoned coal mine possibilities appear to be almost endless.
Mm-hmm.
I really
There are a
like
lot of
it
them.
because it takes away the net negative, which I'm really all about. Anytime you can reduce a net negative, you have these like scars and blemishes. I'm seeing the installation of data centers inside the abandoned coal mines. I
Mhm.
like that sort of innovation. I think that that's creative. As someone that is pro investment, pro business, but also pro accountability, the I don't believe it's my role to say no data centers. I believe it's my role to say no utility bill hikes, no pollution, no expansive acreage demands when you're not providing employment, right? You got to have a balance. I'm creating what I call the acreage to employment ratio, which I can't believe they haven't developed this concept. Christ, it just makes sense. For every acre, you need to provide a job, at least a certain
Interesting.
quotient of jobs. So they want 10,000 acres in Tucker County, right? Like, no, I'm sorry. You better be providing a lot of jobs for 10,000 acres. So applying these standards, what I call mitigation to the conversation. I don't believe I can just arrive and go, nope, that is not diplomatic. It's not intelligent. It just doesn't make sense. There has to be more to it.
Okay.
We have to use the opportunity to say that we're worthy of investment. We're worthy of development. We want it not at our own
I
peril.
I agree. I think you're going to be in alignment with the question that Nelson gets. The core issue was data center development, where people are on the bottom rung of utility prices. In other words, they drive up prices so far that the ones that are hurt by the energy development ends up being the people once again. And that I think was his comment on it. But I'm going to suggest you take that to a future with him, or you can go much deeper into seeing where your policy develops. All right,
Yeah,
and Will,
absolutely.
did I think it's on me is the next one.
Yep.
Um, how do you make decisions when experts disagree with you? Or when experts disagree, I believe you mean they're not in agreement. Yes, sorry, I misunderstood that.
I mean, I typically align with the experts. I'll be honest. COVID was real. Um, you know, I don't typically diverge from the experts too often. I like to side with science. Um, I don't really because I'm opposing MAGA. I don't really have experts that can prove me wrong. I hate to say that like that, but that's true. I mean, I don't. They don't really have experts in MAGA with legit statistics, right? They like the job statistics, for instance. They put Heritage Foundation puppet at the statistics board when after they fired the person that gave them the bad numbers. We can't
Right.
trust the stats or figures coming out of MAGA. So there's no real experts to prove me wrong coming out of MAGA. And I stand with the science and the experts that the Democrats put forth. So just to be perfectly blunt, that would be my answer.
Good. Will?
But and let me
Oh,
finish that up by saying, let's say experts came forward to prove that something I had said was wrong. I am not opposed to admitting that. That's not
yeah.
a problem. Like if science comes out that proves something I've said is incorrect, I will own that. Absolutely.
Thank you. Oh, Will, I think you're on silent or something.
Oopsies. Yep. Well, the next question would be, what's one necessary policy to address West Virginia's long-standing issues that might be unpopular, but you believe is essential?
Unpopular but essential. Phew.
Hmm.
Well, seeing as it's a red state, defense of the Constitution and the fight against fascism isn't exactly the most popular thing here. But we're working on getting that to be more popular. We want people to see that perhaps the most American time was in World War II when we sent our youth to fight Adolf Hitler and the fascists. So, you know, if there was ever a great again, that great was right there when we stood up as an anti fascist nation to defeat tyranny. That greatness is the only greatness I think that we as a nation can point to. Otherwise, it's not great. There has not been a lot of equality. There's not been a lot of rights for everyone. There's been too much fight. There's been too much violence, too much oppression, corporate overlords just hanging everyone out to dry all the time. Uh, I'm working on making it more popular in West Virginia, but standing up for the Constitution, standing up to authoritarians is not as popular as, say, cleaning the water or building the roads.
Yeah,
Uh, but it is equally as important, undeniably.
right. Awesome. And thank you for that one. So I guess, Paul, do you want to ask the next one? Your mic's muted. You're muted.
Come
Sorry, I
back
think
to
we've actually
us.
covered. Yeah, we covered the next question, which was what experience or expertise best prepares you for this role. And I'm pretty just on thinking that all we've covered that you've actually answered this question from multiple angles already. The next
Sure.
question was, how will you engage constituents who did not vote for you or strongly disagreed with you? I think you've also answered that, but I'll give you a chance to take a second bite at that.
Sure. Yeah. No, we've already gone out there and started canvassing. We're the only campaign canvassing. No one else is canvassing. And we take cameras out there when we canvass. So we will literally go shake hands with a microphone and just ask them, what is most important to you? What is affecting you? What pisses you off? What do you want to see change? Right. And we just go out there and ask these questions. Um, the first person I hit in a canvas was MAGA, and we caught it on camera. And it was this amazing conversation. He was pro data center. I was pro questioning the data centers. He was pro Trump. I challenged him on his constitutional, illegitimacy. And it was a fascinating conversation. And it really just takes us pressing the flesh, being willing to go out into the red hollers, into the red communities and counties, and just meet people, shake hands, listen, less self promotion, more listening, and out there just meeting people, not discrediting them, not ignoring them. And this includes Southern West Virginia, for the record, as they typically get more ignored than the North. And I've been down in McDowell. We've brought food and water down there. I'm fully aware of the poisoned water in McDowell in Wyoming. Is just disgusting. It is absolutely at the top of my priority list to get that water fixed. Um, and on and on. But it is about listening to the very serious issues affecting them, whether it's the lack of the Medicaid and the 387% spike in their healthcare costs, or if it's the canceled food stamps and the shutdown, or if it's the high utility bills, or if it's the fact that they don't even have running water. I mean, Christ, some of West Virginia is still unconnected to modern society in ways that it should be. And like North Fork, Burke Mountain in North Fork, West Virginia, has like 60 families on a mountain that have no running water. And I have started to like price the project, put the project together, see the details, find out exactly where we would need the connection to be. Like I have started to really envision how to solve some of these large problems for these people. And I don't care if you're a Republican or Democrat. I just don't care. It is not about helping Republicans or Democrats. It's about what is best for West Virginia, period.
That's good to hear. That is really good to hear.
I do not like party lines when it comes to this, especially under Trump. I have to, as a candidate, I have to have some mettle. I have to gnaw some teeth and claws. I have to fight, but I want to do it in the most diplomatic way possible. I don't want it to be dirty. I don't want it to be inhumane. I want it to be a humane battle. I want it to be a diplomatic battle. I want it to return to the way that it was, at least in operation. Maybe not in messaging, but in operation, in methodology, because there was a civility. And perhaps that's the other greatness that we could make come back, because there was a civility to our politics, even just 20 years ago, comparatively. I want it back. I want that back. I do not like this. I know nobody likes this. So I want to stop the hate, whether it's on the blue side, the red side, I don't care. The hate's got to stop. The amount of lying needs to stop. The amount of dishonesty needs to stop. There is so much hate and dishonesty. It is extraordinary and it's flying from every angle. We need to consciously as a people address this. We want a good nation for our children and for our children's children. We got to stop this. This
Yep.
cannot continue. We have to rise above.
Yep. I very much agree with that. And I guess that you kind of answered the last question too, you
Mhm.
know. So I guess that's really all we have for you. So that's all of our questions.